Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig back here on 97.3 ESPN on game night, hanging out with you as the Phillies prepare to take on the Atlanta Braves tonight. They start their 3-game series in Atlanta. We'll get you the latest on the Phillies and get some perspective on the lineup because they're quote-unquote back to normal tonight. We'll get into what that really means for the Phils moving forward. Plus, Eagles continuing to prepare for preseason game number 3. You hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 12 p.m. It's the pregame in the Hall of Famer Mel Reese alongside Mike Quick calling all the action here on your home for Eagles in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN. As always, you guys can join the conversation at 609-403-0973. What's interesting with the Eagles is that they will have their final training camp practice of the summer on Wednesday. They have announced that Thursday will be a walkthrough. Nick Sirianni will speak after practice tomorrow. So an interesting schedule adjustment. I'm going to make the assumption without any super inside information that if they're resorting to a walkthrough on Thursday, that means that there are going to be some guys who play in the game on Saturday. Now, don't expect a full slate of starters. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is there are still positions to be had on this team, right? There are positions that are still up for grabs. Well, what are those positions? Well, we don't know exactly who the number 3 receiver is. There's a lot of conjecture. The number 3 receiver is not currently on this roster. And even though Britton Covey looks like he is in line to be the slot receiver, no one's going to say that Britton Covey or Paris Campbell are good enough replacements if something happens to Devonta Smith or A.J. Brown for a game or two. The tight end position is a bit of a question because Grant Calcaterra seems to always get injured. C.J. Uzomah has been underwhelming in camp. And E.J. Jenkins, anybody looking forward to him seeing on the field? No. You know, the inside linebacker position, again, they opened the practice, the most recent practice, I should say, with Bond and White. So while Dean got a ton of practices, now all of a sudden we're back to Bond going out there again. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if they're just trying to give Bond more reps, if they already know that Dean is going to be the guy. Not exactly sure, but we know that it's basically 4 players. It's White, it's Bond, it's Dean, and it's Trotter Jr. And all 4 of them are good at one specific skill set. And it's a skill set that's important to Vic Fangio, which is he likes for his linebackers to be able to blitz. And the reason why that factoid is significant is because Vic Fangio was asked about his philosophy when it came to blitzing, and this is what he told the media.
You want to blitz when you want to and you think it's appropriate. You don't want to blitz because you feel you have to. That's the answer. I mean, we'll have games where we hardly do it. We'll have games where we do it a lot. It's based on who we are, personnel-wise, the scheme we're going against, and what do we feel the best way to stop somebody is.
So if his desire is to blitz when he wants to and not when he feels like he has to, if he wants to dictate the terms of engagement, he needs to make sure the guys he has on the field can dictate those terms of engagement. So, for example, if your goal is to have at least one linebacker on the field at all times who can blitz, just so you are prepared for that play to be called, I think we all can agree that any one of those 4 can do it. They all have that skill set. Devin White showed it a ton of times, whether it was at Tampa with the Buccaneers, whether it was at LSU. He showed it both places. Nakobe Dean showed it a ton at the University of Georgia. Zach Bond, he is totally capable of doing that as well. And Jeremiah Trotter is one of his strengths at Clemson doing that. So if you are the Eagles, you have 4 linebackers who can blitz. Now the question is, what else can they do? Who's the best run stuffer? Who's the best coverage guy? Trotter Jr. has grown leaps and bounds in that category to the point where Jeff Mosher said on Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill here on 97.3 ESPN. Jeff Mosher said he wouldn't be surprised if Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is one of the team's primary linebackers after the bye week of this season or at the halfway point of the season. Remember, they have a bye week after the first 4 weeks. They could take that bye week and recalibrate this defense at that point. I don't know what Zach Bond's role is going to be on this team. I think Fangio is fascinated with him as a weapon on defense, but I think he's starting to realize that Nakobe Dean's the better linebacker. And it seems like Fangio is trying not to come out and overtly say that because I think he realizes that he needs the other 3 guys to continue to be engaged. And then the other question on the defense, and the reason why I'm saying on defense, I'll tell you is a specific reason. We talked about this last week when I was filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash. Isaiah Rodgers, who is the leading candidate for outside corner across from Slay, he's listed at 5'10". But if you ask people like John McMullen and Jeff Mosher and Andrew DeCecco and Chris Franklin, they all will tell you Isaiah Rodgers is closer to my height than he is 5'10". It's like the old high school trick where you would get yourself measured in cleats and then they'd round up. I've never been 5'10" in my life. But when you're wearing cleats and you round up, I'm 5'10". So you're basically saying that you want a guy who's basically 5'9" to deal with Christian Watson, who's 6'4", and Romeo Dobbs, who's 6'2". Or in week 2 against the Falcons, Drake London at 6'4". Or week 3 against the Saints, Cedric Wilson is 6'2". Week 4, Mike Evans is 6'5". Chris Godwin is 6'1". It's a huge concern. Is Rodgers going to be able to play well enough to offset those guys in the size matchups when he gets matched up on them? Because we talked with Andrew DeCecco about this last week here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh, I think hanging out with you on a Tuesday night. It doesn't matter how explosive, how twitchy, how athletic you are. 5'9" versus 6'4" is still a huge disadvantage for any corner. And you're basically telling the other team, box out my guy. So unless Isaiah Rodgers is the greatest small cornerback since Darrell Green, and I doubt he is, because why would the Colts release Isaiah Rodgers if he's that good? And I doubt that Isaiah Rodgers is a future Hall of Famer. So unless he's anywhere close to Darrell Green, who played in Washington for his NFL career, who won multiple Super Bowls with head coach Joe Gibbs. Unless I were expecting Isaiah Rodgers to be that level of great, I think it's a concern. So that's why, for me, I think that the reason why that they are doing this walkthrough on Thursday, because they plan to play some of these guys in the game against Minnesota, because they want to get one more look at who these guys are on the field before the initial 53. Because I'm telling you guys right now, there's a strong possibility that the guy who's going to be a number 3 receiver is not just on this team, he's on another team. There's a possibility other positions are not on this team either. We are not 100% certain who the Eagles are going to use at backup safety. They got injuries, right? Who are the blitzing outside edge guys? Well, we are assuming the starters are Josh Sweat and Bryce Huff. But behind them are Nolan Smith, Brandon Graham, and Patrick Johnson. I don't think anyone's jumping up and down about that. And Jelix Hunt, he's young and inexperienced. So what do you do there? I think there's a lot of positions that have to be determined still on this team. And I got to tell you one thing. On offense, if you told me I'm going to the year with Brett Toth as my backup center, I'm not excited. Not one bit. Because that guy has trouble snapping the ball. Holy Toledo, Batman. All right, on the text board, we'll get to that in just a moment at 609-403-0973. I'll get you my Phillies thoughts a little bit later in the hour. Just you and me hanging out for the power hour known as Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Over on the text board, 609-403-0973. Dan EHT chimes in and says, isn't there a concern that Fangio runs the same defensive scheme as Desai? Some would say Fangio's defensive scheme is outdated. Well, couple things, Danny HT. One, I don't know who would say that Fangio's scheme is outdated, considering half the NFL uses his scheme. So it's not outdated. Fangio, you go through his recent years. The only time really had trouble with the defense when he was a head coach in Denver. And when your attention is drawn away from the defense, it's a problem. Look, whether it was with the Colts, whether it was the 49ers, whether it was the Dolphins last year, whether it was the Chicago Bears, everywhere Fangio goes for the last 20 plus years, he's done a good job. Now, the reason why I think that you're kind of projecting from last year to this year is because the rationale for why they hired Desai was because the theory was that Desai is going to run a Fangio-style defense. John Gannon ran a Fangio-style defense. And the 2022 Eagles were top 3 in the NFL. They were number 1 sacks. They're also top 3 in quarterback pressures. So Gannon had a lot of success running a version of Fangio's scheme. But Desai failed running Fangio's system. So you could argue that it's not Fangio's scheme or his system that's the problem. It's the people calling it. And Fangio even made that weird comment where he says, oh, yeah, I have a way that I study analytics and I have a way of developing my defense that I never told my assistant coaches about. Like, the dude apparently has like a proprietary blend and he doesn't want to tell anybody what the formula is. It's a little ridiculous that you got a guy in Fangio. This dude literally thinks that his system is so top secret. He didn't tell anybody about it. But yeah, he's willing to sit down with Jalen Hurts to have a full-blown conversation about it at practice. It's a very it's a very strange offset between that. So, Danny HC, I don't think that Fangio's defense is the problem or his scheme. I think the problem is who's calling it. You know, I don't think that we always understand that just because someone coached under somebody doesn't mean they're going to be good or not. You know, John Gannon's system is actually a combination of 3 people because Gannon originally got to start with Mike Zimmer. Then he worked under Matt Eberflus. And so we took information from both those guys, merged it with the Fangio system, and boom, defense. Sean Desai worked under Fangio and Chuck Pagano and Pete Carroll, and it didn't work. So I don't think it's as simple as if you work under someone, that's going to be a solution. You know, I see the comment about Steve Spagnuolo. Steve Spagnuolo he's a rare case because Steve Spagnuolo, who was a complete failure as a head coach, he has had success as an assistant with 2 different organizations, the Giants and the Chiefs. Well, let me ask you this question. Why don't people try to replicate what he does? because what he does is very specific to him, a little like Fangio. And the fact that you look at over the years what kind of people worked under him, there's a reason why almost none of those guys ever did anything in the NFL. It's not like you can name a bunch of Steve Spagnuolo disciples like you can name a bunch of Vic Fangio disciples, because we have more of a better idea of who the Fangio disciples are than the Spagnuolo disciples are, because there really isn't any. And I think that's really where the difference is. The difference is that Spags is a coach who has had a level of success with certain types of head coaches. It's the marriage of the head coach and the assistant coach that has led to his success. It has not been just him by himself. I don't remember Patrick Graham ever being a good defensive coordinator. I thought he was okay. I don't think he was ever great. It's not like Spags has been able to cultivate a group of coaches who have spawned off from his tree. So I don't think it's as simple as saying, this guy's a good defensive coordinator, let's go steal someone from him. I think that you are being a little too impatient, Dan the HT. I think you need to let this thing play out. I think that I appreciate the connective tissue. I think you're overlooking the fact that Spags had all of his success with two different head coaches. And they're two old school mentality coaches who modified their coaching style for the modern day player, that being Andy Reid and Tom Coughlin. Spags didn't have the same success without Tom Coughlin or Andy Reid. Not in St. Louis with the Rams, not in New Orleans with the Saints. He only had that success when he was with two of those head coaches. So it's not as simple to say, well, Spags won championships, so that's the kind of coordinator coach we need to get. I think you're being way too impatient with Fangio. And I think that you need to let this thing play out before you're judging him or questioning his scheme. I mean, whoever says Fangio's defensive scheme is outdated in HT, they're either a hot take artist or they're an idiot. Because every football guru that I've ever heard, whether it's the Greg Cosell's, whether it's the Brian Baldingers, whether it's the Jason Avants, whether it's the Emery Hunts, whoever the film guy is, Ted Nguyen, who we had last week from The Athletic, all of the football guru guys have said that Fangio's defense is really good. And it doesn't matter how many championships he has. Outside of Steve Spagnuolo and Bill Belichick, you can't name a bunch of defensive coordinators in the last 20 years who have won championships. Belichick, all of his coordinators left him and they couldn't win anywhere else, right? The only guy who was a Belichick guy who won anywhere else was Matt Vrabel. Jim Schwartz won a Super Bowl. I don't see anybody begging for him to come back to Philadelphia. You know who else won a championship? Greg Williams. I don't see anybody calling his number up. Marvin Lewis. Anybody calling him? Don't get it twisted that the defensive coordinator winning a championship means success. That is a byproduct of the relationship between the coordinator and the head coach. It is a cooperative agreement. It's a cooperative relationship. It is a partnership that leads to that championship, as well as who the quarterback is, how good the offensive line is, how good defensive player personnel is. Do we really think that Steve Spagnuolo and the Chiefs win all those championships if he doesn't have Chris Jones on the defensive line? Just saying. Those Giant teams that beat the Patriots, they had an amazing pass rush, elite pass rush up front. I mean, just studs like Michael Strahan and Justin Tuck and Usi Umenyiora and JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul, right? All those guys were monsters. They were studs going after the quarterback. If you don't have those guys, are you able to call the same defense? Don't get championships twisted with ability to coach. Just because Fangio doesn't have this museum of rings has nothing to do with his ability to call a defense. Okay? It is one of the most flawed concepts that championships are the only reflection of a guy's success. Remember, the reason why Fangio had to leave Indianapolis is because they brought in Tony Dungy in the cover two. It wasn't because he was doing a bad job. You go back and look at those defenses. You realize they were pretty good in Indianapolis for some of those years. Then he coached with not one, but two expansion franchises in Carolina and Houston. Why? Because he's very good at developing young players. He got to a Super Bowl with the San Francisco 49ers. Got to the playoffs multiple times with Chicago Bears. Got to the playoffs last year with the Miami Dolphins. I think you got to look more big picture, Danny HT, than just did he win a championship? Because I think that's where we all get in trouble. Again, name me outside Steve Spagnuolo and Bill Belichick, the defensive-minded coach who won multiple championships as a defensive-minded guy. I don't think it's that simple. Because if it was, then everybody would do it. We wouldn't hire all these other guys like Jim Schwartz, for example, if it wasn't for the fact that we look at these defensive coordinators, Jim Schwartz, Jonathan Gannon, Jim Johnson, we look at them as guys who are complementary to the head coach. That is what's more important. Jeff from Ocean City, I'll get to your text on the other side, 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. And by the way, Danny HC, you can use the Super Bowl and Nick Foles all you want. The Eagles defense got them there. Nick Foles didn't beat the Falcons. Nick Foles didn't beat the Vikings. The Eagles defense won those two games. Jim Schwartz got ripped apart by the greatest quarterback of all time. Outside of two legendary defensive coordinators, no one else has ever slowed Tom Brady down in the greatest game in the land. Wade Phillips, Steve Spagnuolo, and the Giants. That's it. And by the way, let me double check something real quick. I don't even know if Steve Spagnuolo was defensive coordinator when they beat Brady the second time. Let's fact check that information. Let's see here. The defensive coordinator in 2011 was Perry Fuel, not Steve Spagnuolo. So it was, again, the head coach, Tom Coughlin, and his system that beat Brady twice. Spags only there for one of them. Also, I'll remind you that Spags didn't beat Brady the second time. Because let me double check. But wasn't Spagnuolo the defensive coordinator when, let me see here. When the Chiefs lost to the Bucs in the biggest game, that game called the Super Bowl, wasn't Spags the defensive coordinator? Yes, he was. So, if Spags is only 1-1 against Brady, and Jim Schwartz is 0-1, and Wade Phillips held the Patriots to the fewest points they've ever had in the Super Bowl, and he lost the game. Flawed argument, Danny HT. I appreciate the relentlessness. I appreciate your resilience in this argument. But at the end of the day, the Eagles team won the championship. They would not be in that Super Bowl if it wasn't for that Jim Schwartz defense getting them there. And again, it was Tom Brady who threw for 500 yards against them. Not Mark Rippon, not Doug Flutie, not Doug Williams. Flutie never played in the Super Bowl, but not Neil O'Donnell, not Rich Gannon. It was Tom Brady. If anyone's going to throw for 500 on you, it's Tom Brady. They had the perfect answer for Schwartz because Who did Jim Schwartz get his start in the NFL with? Bill Belichick. Come on, gotta expand your mind, people. Trying to help you guys out there. Josh Hittig, 973 ESPN FM and 973 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
97.3 ESPN has teamed up with Seize the Deal for incredible weekly offers from some fantastic local restaurants. Here's this week's big deal.
Get a $50 gift card good for use at Villa Basilari in Buena for just $25.
Get this great deal starting Friday at 9 a.m. at seizethedeal.com. Hurry, chances are this deal will sell quickly. For more info on this great deal, go to seizethedeal.com.
seizethedeal.com.
Total Wireless is made to totally keep up with you. We now have unlimited data that never slows you down. Covered by the Verizon 5G network. And for less than $30 a month, we make your phone your ride or die. Switch now and pick a free 5G phone with qualified plan purchase. And your fourth line at no additional cost. Visit your local Total Wireless store today. Total Wireless, we're totally with you. Actual speeds may vary by location. For data management practices, see TotalWireless.com.
With GMF financing to qualified buyers excludes Traverse and Corvette excludes prior sales.
It's Bennett Chevy's end of summer blowout. Hurry in now for deals you can't find anywhere else. Our best deals of the year. Like $500 below GM supplier employee prices on new Chevys. Yes, you pay $500 less than our employees pay. Plus, Bennett gives you all the rebates. That could save you up to 10% on your new Chevy. Save even more with available 0.9% financing. And Bennett Chevy is South Jersey's EV headquarters with a great selection of EVs, hybrids, SUVs, and Chevy trucks. And right now, we're paying a whopping $10,000 minimum for any old trade. We don't care if it runs, just get it here. That's at least $10,000 for total junk towards any pre-owned in stock. Imagine how much we'll pay for a good trade. And our non-commissioned sales team is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. So you'll love your no-hassle, no-haggle experience. Together, let's drive at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Find what you love, love what you find. A Total Wine and More. There's so much waiting for you. Spirits and beer, thousands of wines.
Only at Total Wine and More. Drink responsibly. Be 21.
Trust Jenkins Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, where one call does it all for leaks, stoppages, and renovations. For 75 years, Jenkins trained technicians have been providing reputable service to local homeowners. Renovating your kitchen or bath? Call Jenkins for new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, oil service, plumbing and drain cleaning services, water line or sewer main repairs and replacements. Call 609-641-6262 or visit JenkinsandSons.com.
Right now at Wendy's, you can get a small Frosty for $1, and literally everyone is going. The car behind you, going to get $1 Frosty. The car ahead of you, already had one, going for a second. The person who cut you off earlier, you guessed it, $1 Frosty. Maybe it's all a sign for you to go get one. Just don't cut anyone off. No one likes that person. The iconic Frosty for $1, gotta be Wendy's.
Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's. Not valid in a combo. Prices may be higher in Alaska, Hawaii, California, and via third-party delivery.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code TURN to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code TURN for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code TURN for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
As fall approaches, you have a lot to prepare for. Back to school, sporting events, family gatherings, and staying on top of your health. The virus that causes COVID-19 continues to evolve. So this fall, no matter what you're prepping for, you can prioritize your family's health. and make a game plan for COVID-19 vaccination. Ask your doctor or pharmacist to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Powered by the all-new BetParks New Jersey Casino and Sportsbook app. BetParks.com. This is the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network.
Will changes on the Eagles coaching staff make that much of a difference? I'm Nick Earnshaw with your South Jersey Sports Center and with your 97.3 ESPN question of the day. The Eagles brought in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio to run the offense and defense this year after losing 6 out of their last 7 games in 2023. With that being said, our 97.3 ESPN question of the day is, which new Eagles coordinator will have a bigger impact this season? Let us know by texting 609-403-0973 or use the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. In my estimation, I think you got to go with Kellen Moore. The offense was bland. It was stale last year. I think he is going to make a significant difference on the offensive side. Not to say Vic Fangio won't, but I think Kellen Moore on the offensive side of things will make more of a difference. Once again, text in at 609-403-0973. Your forecast is next.
From playtime to showtime, Atlantic City always serves classic summer fun with a twist of cool. Visit AtlanticCityNJ.com to win an overnight getaway.
From the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dan Zero. Consider your wardrobe carefully over the next couple of days, especially if you're out and about late nights or early mornings. There will be a little chill in the air. Tonight, we bottom out around 55 degrees, clear skies and lighter winds. Tomorrow's going to be the coolest day of the week with lots of sunshine, high of 74. Partly sunny and 77 on Thursday. Mostly sunny on Friday, warming up to 81. Get weather 24/7 wherever you are. Download our free mobile app today.
At Complete Care Health Network, their new men's and family health professionals facility in Williamstown offers preventative health screenings and primary care for the entire family with a focus on men's health. Schedule your appointment at CompleteCareNJ.org.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
You know, what's always interesting is that people love to pick and choose when they want to accept an answer, right? You know, the same thing goes in politics, same thing goes with political, social issues, and the same thing goes for sports. And I'm not trying to pick on Dan EHT, but Dan EHT sent a text while we were during the break there at 609-403-0973, and he said, well, Jim Schwartz had great players in 2017. Well, Steve Spagnuolo had great players too when he won championships. So did Bill Belichick. Name me all the mediocre players on the Bill Belichick defenses with the Giants and the Patriots. You know, Danny AFC, we love the fact that you engage with us. We love the back and forth here on 97.3 ESPN. But you are a shining symbol of a group of fans. It's not just you. You're not alone in this at all. A lot of people feel the way you do. You pick and choose when you want to say it's the players and when you want to say it's the coach. And there's no rhyme or reason. There's no pattern. There's no common thread. It's just you pick and choose when you want to make that connection. And good for you, buddy. I'm glad that you can live with that type of irrational disconnection. You know, Jim Schwartz had great players, but Steve Spagnuolo is a champion, right? You know, it's not how it works, man. It's not how it works, buddy. And you know what? Wade Phillips, poor Wade Phillips. I don't mean that to be mean about Wade Phillips. You know, Wade Phillips had an amazing coaching career. Wade Phillips is arguably one of the greatest defensive coaches in football history. Aside from being Buddy Ryan's defensive coordinator, he went from Buddy Ryan to go on to be the DC for multiple teams that got to the Super Bowl. Denver Broncos. Remember those teams? Well, they lost, right? You know, when he's a defensive coordinator with the Rams, 2018, they lost to Brady. And they held Brady one of the lowest scoring Super Bowls of all time. I think it still is the lowest scoring Super Bowl of all time, 13-3. He held the Patriots to 13 points. 13. Couldn't win a championship. The dude is one of the greatest defensive coaches of all time. Never won a championship. Heck of a lot of unfortunate bad luck going for that guy. I don't see anybody saying that Wade Phillips was a bum and an idiot. I think the problem is sports fans do this way more often than people like myself behind the mic, which is I try to be the objective person in the room. Okay. I try to take my own emotional fandom. And I will ask you guys sometimes if my emotional fandom is getting in the way. You know, my irrational disgust that I had with Christian Pache was infamous here on 97.3 ESPN to the point where people were mad at me for attacking Christian Pache the way I did. To which I said, all right, my bad. So we're all guilty of being overly passionate fans. The problem is that if your argument about Vic Fangio is he's never won a championship, that's not a reason not to hire somebody. He is already 10 times better than Sean Desai and Matt Patricia last year, and he hasn't coached the game yet. Jeff from Ocean City chimes in at 609-403-0973. A very, very hyper-specific question from Jeff from Ocean City. Jeff says, Josh, do you think Saquon Barkley had the fourth most receptions on the Eagles this year? First of all, that is one of the most specific questions I've ever been asked in my life. How do I answer this? Well, I'm assuming that A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith will be 1 and 2 in whatever order, I don't know, but they'll be the top two. I genuinely do believe that Dallas Goedert is going to have a much better year this year than in the last couple of years. Remember, in Kellen Moore offenses, tight ends average almost a total of 8 touchdowns per year. In the Shane Steichen, Nick Sirianni 3 years of offenses, they average 4 touchdowns a year. The tight ends get way more targets in Kellen Moore offenses than in the Steichen Sirianni systems. So you could argue that Dallas Goedert will be the number 3 receptions guy for this team. So the question is, who's 4? I think you could project Barkley to be 4. I don't think they're going to bring in somebody who's good enough, who will demand enough slot catches to take away from Barkley. Now, if you're worried that Gainwell and or Shipley will be used a little more in pass situations than Barkley, I guess. I just don't see that being a scenario that makes sense. I think for a team like the Eagles, you have to go into this year and prioritize using Saquon. Not just because of all the money you paid him, but because you don't hire a guy like Kellen Moore and then handcuff him, right? You can't hire a guy like Kellen Moore and limit what he can do. You don't take a guy like Kellen Moore and tell him, hey, man, we love your offense, but you can do this, but you can't do that. Like, I don't see the Eagles hiring Kellen Moore and saying, Kellen, we know you love to use tight end and the running back, but don't use those guys here. Right? I don't see that happening at all. So I think it's fair. It's reasonable to expect Saquon to be the team's number 4 receiver this year. Now, see, here's the thing with the Eagles. Who is going to get more targets if they're both healthy for the majority of the season? Let's say both Saquon Barkley and Grant Calcaterra end up playing 15 games each. Who finishes the year with more targets? The tight end or the running back? Because if you go into the Kellen Moore history, specifically with the Dallas Cowboys, and you look at the target shares on those teams, okay? Not receptions, targets. Let's break it down here. Wide receiver, tight end, wide receiver, running back. So in 2019, the running back was 5th. All right, let's go to the next year. And again, this is all we have to work off of because we've never seen Kellen Moore coach for the Eagles yet. So we're just projecting off of what he's done in the past. Let's see here. Wide receiver, tight end, running back. All right, so again, we're at 5. 2021, what did Kellen Moore's team do that year? So we got wide receiver, tight end, wide receiver, running back. So there was 1 year where he was number 4 at running back. So I do think it's possible that they end up using Barkley more in this offense. I think the problem Jeff in Ocean City, you have to remember, is that they may intend to get Barkley the ball, but does he get the ball? That's always a curious question I have, is about in football. In football, are you willing to be the team that turns around and says, we are not going to use one of our best weapons? I think that's the overarching question. I've never heard of a team that had any success that said, you know what we're not going to do for a season? We're not going to use one of our best players. I'm assuming that Barkley gets used a lot. Check out the text board. A little more coming up next, 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City.
Wake up weekday mornings from 6 to 10 a.m. with Unsportsmanlike on 97.3 ESPN with Evan Cohen, Super Bowl champion Chris Canty, and Michelle Small.
Can't wake up without it.
Brought to you by the Gallery Bar Book and Games at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Point.
Hey, you okay? You don't normally miss those shots.
Oh, I just haven't been as regular lately, and it's making me feel sluggish.
You should try Metamucil. It's been a game changer for me. Metamucil's plant-based psyllium fiber helps trap and remove the waste that weighs you down.
Ace,
you're moving better than you were last week.
Definitely.
Metamucil keeps you moving. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Learn more at Metamucil.com.
Getting ready for back to school at Macy's is all about fresh starts and new looks, making it one of summer's greatest hits. Save on must-haves like cargos, mini dresses, jeans, and more that'll hold up from the first day of school to the last. Plus, you'll find all the top quality brands you love, like Nike, Jordan, Levi's, and the all-new Epic Threads. Shop Macy's and make the first day back the best one yet. Check out Macy's.com/back to school today.
Fall's coming. You have a lot to prepare for. Back to school, family gatherings, and staying on top of your health. The virus that causes COVID-19 continues to evolve, so this fall make a plan for COVID-19 vaccination. Ask your doctor to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
When you want experience, go for the best. Pick up the phone and call Dennisville Fence.
Hey South Jersey homeowners, autumn is here and fall season means fence season. Are you dreaming of a new fence or railing but you don't want to break the bank? Our pro tip of the day, install in the fall for big savings. As your exclusive Active Yards dealer, you can choose from our inventory of privacy, decorative, security, and pull fence solutions by Active Yards. No matter what your needs are, we have a high-quality, maintenance-free Active Yard solution that is right for you. Don't miss our Install in the Fall savings coupled with our no-money-down, interest-free financing so together we can make your dream a reality. So give us a call today or go online to DennisvilleFence.com to request a free estimate, and be sure to mention that you want to install in the fall.
Go with experience. Go for the best. Pick up the phone and call Dennisville Fence. 1-800-499-FENCE.
Visit DennisvilleFence.com.
Guess what, people? Wendy's has new saucy nugs. You heard me. Wendy's nugs now come in 7 saucy flavors. Buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, spicy ghost pepper. You can literally hear your taste buds after every bite. I'm serious. Listen to mine. Okay, that's just me playing with sound effects, but you got the idea. For a whole new way to nug, gotta be Wendy's.
Participating U.S. Wendy's.
Are you ready to smell better naked? I'm Dr. Shannon Klingman, the OBGYN creator of Lumi, the whole body deodorant that's clinically proven to control odor for 72 hours on pits, feet, privates, and beyond. It's pH optimized to safely and effectively control odor anywhere you have it, but wish you didn't. Plus, it's proven to work better than a shower with soap alone. Whether you shower twice a day or 3 times a week, Lumi works better. And who doesn't want zero body odor? With over 200,000 5-star reviews, I'm so sure you're going to love it, or you can return it for free.
There's a special offer for listeners. Use code BETTER and get 15% off your first purchase with code BETTER, like the Lumi Starter Pack, Acidified Body Wash, or new Lumi Plus Sweat Control. That's LUME deodorant.com, code BETTER for 15% off your first purchase. Love it or return it for free. That's LUME deodorant.com, code BETTER to save 15% today.
It only happens once a year. The summer clearance sale at Matt Blatt Kia. Have a job clearing $450 per week? Matt Blatt Kia wants to approve you today. 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days, and 0%. So if you're currently stuck in a loan or lease, we want to get you released. Then take $7,500 off MSRP or 0% for 48 months and no payments for 90 days on every clearly marked EV in stock. And EV6, $2,083 per thousand. Not all will qualify. Credit may affect down payment. Offers can't be combined. Go to mattblattkianj.com for complete details or 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer, except for licensing, registration, and taxes through KMF. EV6 rebates and incentives to dealer. Expires 9/3/24. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Road, Harbor Township, and on Route 37 River.
Meet Cheryl. Hey, she's on vacation and lost in the moment. Unfortunately, so is her Chase debit card.
It's got to be somewhere.
Maybe she lost it at salsa night.
These skirts should have pockets.
Or maybe she lost it at Pilates.
3 and 2 and...
But she's not worried. With the Chase mobile app, she can lock her card till it turns up. Tools that help protect. One bank that puts you in control. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank, N.A. member FDIC.
Find what you love, love what you find. A Total Wine and More. There's so much waiting for you. Spirits and beer, thousands of wines. Guides in the know and prices so low, it just might blow your mind. You're gonna find what you love and love what you find.
Only at Total Wine and More. Drink responsibly. Be 21.
This year, Dell Technologies' Back to School event is delivering impressive tech with an inspiring purpose. Learn how Dell is helping Computer Aid, whose work is helping solar community hubs with tech and AI literacy skills to empower remote, displaced, or disconnected communities around the world. Help Dell make a difference and shop AI-ready PCs powered by Snapdragon X Series processors at Dell.com/deals. That's Dell.com/deals.
Go for the endless ocean views and the non-stop entertainment. Go for the lucky whirls and the late night twirls. Go for the gourmet eats and the next level sweets. Go to celebrate. Go to rejuvenate. Go for an escape that's anything but ordinary. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennick on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
All right, let's check back in one more time before we wrap up the hour. I did want to hit on the Phillies really quick, so we will take a break from the Eagles conversation. So the Phillies tonight start a 3-game series with the Braves, and it couldn't have come at a better time. And here's why. For those in here, Austin Riley will now be out 6 to 8 weeks. So when the Phillies play the Atlanta Braves in 7 games over the next 14 days, no Austin Riley, no Ronald Acuna, no Ozzie Albies, no Steven Strider, and you don't have to face Chris Sale in this series. So while, yes, Lopez and Fried and Schwellenbach have been good pitchers this year, they're not unbeatable. They're not untouchable. And you got Wheeler going tonight. You got Sanchez going on Thursday against a Braves team that is averaging fewer runs per game than you are since the All-Star break. Yes, the Atlanta Braves are averaging 4.4 runs per game since the All-Star break. Phillies averaging 4.6. Marginally, the Braves are a worse offense than you since the middle of July. And with the lineup right now finally having come around, finally woken up since that Schwarber grand slam on Wednesday, you could argue that this Atlanta series is a beautiful opportunity for the Phillies to get 2 out of 3 in Atlanta, continue the positive vibes, and put yourself in the position to run away with this division. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the Phillies' schedule, once they get through the current stretch of games, the schedule evens out significantly. In Atlanta for 3, then Kansas City for 3, then home against the Astros, and then home against the Braves. After that, once you get past Sunday, September 1st, then you have Labor Day off. Who do you play in the month of September? The Blue Jays, the Marlins, the Rays, the Mets, the Brewers, the Mets, the Cubs, and you finish the season with the Nationals. If you can go to Atlanta and steal 2 out of 3, it almost doesn't even matter what you're doing in Kansas City at that point. Because once you get to Kansas City, you are riding high because you knocked the Braves down another peg and put yourself in a position to get that much closer, not just to winning the division, but also locking up one of the top seeds in the National League. I don't think we have genuinely spent enough time appreciating the positive with this team, which is their offense has finally woken up. You know, they scored 34 runs from August 14th to August 18th. They averaged almost 7 runs per game from the day Kyle Schwarber hit that grand slam to the end of that series. Before that, they were averaging 4 runs a game. And a huge chunk of those runs were scored against the Dodgers. So, moving forward, I am curious to see what the Phillies can do in Atlanta. I think they can get some games down there. It'll be low-scoring games, though. I'm not expecting a bunch of high-scoring games in Atlanta. Now, the news did come out today that Austin Hayes will be getting a rehab assignment today in Lehigh Valley. I'm going to go off the assumption that tomorrow it'll be Weston Wilson against Max Fried. But do we end up seeing Austin Hayes down the road potentially against the Royals or the Astros? Remember, Austin Hayes, where was he playing for years? The Orioles. What league is that? The American League. I'm just saying it's a possibility. Now, the problem is you're not going to see any lefties in the Royals or Astros series. So is there a value in bringing Hayes back any sooner? I necessarily don't think so. Thanks everybody for texting into the show tonight. I will not be on tomorrow. I am taking a personal day off tomorrow to try to recharge the batteries. I'll catch you guys again on Thursday here on 97.3 ESPN.
You have the choice, whether it's going out to dinner or ordering takeout at a local restaurant. Those choices help to put money back into your community, and Town Square Media.
Before we get out of here, on my YouTube channel, at Josh Hennig on YouTube, if you're watching the post-game show, I appreciate you watching, or the post-show show, whatever you want to call it. The epilogue, the extended cut, the director's cut. I did have a controversial point I wanted to make really quick. So, for those who didn't see the news in my world, which is sports media, Sam Ponder, who, from all intents and purposes, from my understanding, is one of the most genuine people who work in this business. She was fired by ESPN. And this is now the second time a woman has been fired by ESPN and replaced by a white man. And I'm trying to understand how a company that is supposed to be woke, a company that has been accused of being liberal and leftists and all this stuff, why they keep firing women and replacing them with men with the same jobs. Am I the only one who's perplexed by this? You listen to people like Clay Travis, people like Ben Shapiro. You listen to, the people like the Dan Dockages and all these guys who are, big anti-ESPN people. But yet no one gives me an answer why both Rachel Nichols and Sam Ponder were fired and replaced by a white guy, by a company that is supposed to be woke and supposed to be liberal agenda and trying to shove agenda down our throat. I think the real problem isn't that ESPN is woke. And I'm not to say because I work on an ESPN radio station, okay? I'm not employed by ESPN corporate or by Walt Disney. I'm employed by Town Square Media. So I can speak against ESPN corporate if I want to. But I hate always being the guy to ask the questions that no one else wants to ask. So I'm going to ask the question right here on my YouTube channel, at Josh Hennig. What is it about ESPN that seems so necessary to replace women with a guy who seems to never want to actually do his job? You see, Mike Greenberg takes more days off at ESPN than any other person I've ever seen in my life. I have never seen a human being in any profession that's not politics that takes off more days than Mike Greenberg. But yet you get rid of somebody who has given her blood, sweat, and tears to a company like ESPN, worked her way up the ladder, got to NFL Sunday Countdown, and they let her go because what? She won't be quiet about some of her political views? They got rid of Rachel Nichols because she said some uncomfortable things on a open mic that should have never been open? So what you're basically telling me is that we are now okay with women losing their jobs in sports because we don't respect their right to free speech? But it's okay to replace them with a white guy, but yet you want to still tell me that ESPN is woke? Are they woke, or are they just interested in controlling the message? You see, I always go back to the Dave Chappelle story, for those who haven't heard it. So Dave Chappelle likes to tell this story about the reason why he stopped working at Comedy Central and with MTV. So those who haven't heard the story, I'll just give it to you the real short Reader's Digest version. So Dave Chappelle gets called into an executive office and gets asked the question, hey, David, we love your stuff. You're getting great ratings. You're amazing. And they said, but we would like it if you stop using this specific homosexual slur. And Dave Chappelle said, all right, whatever. And he gets ready to walk out of the office. But he turns right around and says, let me ask you a question. You don't want me to use this slur, this homosexual slur, but you're okay with me using a slur that describes black people. And they said, yeah, because you're black. And that was the moment that Dave Chappelle realized that the media is interested in controlling messages and narratives, not just what is put on television, but by the people who represent their companies. The problem in today's media is that a lot of companies want to control the narrative that is spoken by the people who are on their platforms, whether it's on radio, whether it's on television, whether it's on streaming platforms, whatever. And the reason why that has become more and more of an issue for these companies is because of YouTube, the X platform, Instagram Live, Twitch streaming, even TikTok to an extent. A lot of these platforms have become avenues for people to say what they want to say without the confines of corporate overlords telling them what they should or shouldn't do. So remember, it's not that companies are actually woke sometimes. It's not that they actually care about, equal opportunity, employment, and diversity. They just want to be in control. And as soon as they lose control, you know what they do? They hand the job to a guy who doesn't want to work half the year. Because there's more of an insult than anything to Sam Ponder and Rachel Nichols. It's that they were replaced by a guy who apparently takes as many days off as humanly possible. And if that doesn't bother people, I don't know what will. I'm Josh Hennig, at Josh Hennig on my YouTube channel, on Twitter's platform. I'm sure what I just said will offend somebody, but I don't care because it's the truth. And the truth will make people uncomfortable. Have a great night, everybody.